Greetings and welcome to another lecture in Introductory Psychology. This one involves sleeping, perchance to dream, as it were. Why do we dream? That's a really good question that people have been asking for a very, very long time, probably as long as we've had language, because I suspect that we've been dreaming for longer than we've had language. And so there's been all sorts of different theories as to why it is that we dream, some of them more scientific than others. I'm actually going to start with, in terms of psychology and probably in terms of the real world, one of the oldest theories of dreaming that there is. Now, this theory was devised by Sigmund Freud, so it has all of the baggage that Sigmund Freud carries along with him. It's called the Psychodynamic Theory because it is one of the bases of his psychodynamic theories of personality and that sort of thing. Now, because it's Freud, you know that it involves the unconscious, you know that it involves things that we have hidden from ourselves, events, thoughts, urgings, that sort of thing. And so Freud believed that dreams are a manifestation of the unconscious, that when we put those things we don't want to think about, we bury them in our unconscious, they build up pressure, and eventually, if we don't let them vent, they're going to explode all over the place, and it's going to be pretty ugly. More on Freud's theories in the personality section. But Freud believed that dreams were a way that the unconscious uses to blow off steam, as it were, and it's also a way for therapists to be able to get an idea of what's going on inside someone's unconscious, because he believed that dreams were wish fulfillment for the unconscious. And I want to make that clear. When I say this is wish fulfillment, I don't mean that you want whatever happens in your dreams to happen in real life. Sometimes you might, but a lot of times we dream things that we truly do not want to happen. So I'm just simply pointing out that Freud said that what happens in dreams is we give our unconscious what it wants. And what does our unconscious want? What is it full of? Sex and violence. And it may then be why a lot of the dreams that we have are negative. Most of the dreams we have are negative in some way or another. Something bad is happening to you or going to happen or has happened or whatever. Because the unconscious, according to Freud anyway, deals in that sort of thing. So it's wish fulfillment for the unconscious. And psychodynamic psychologists, and psychoanalytic as well, would then use those dreams, as I said, to figure out what's going on inside the unconscious. Now, what we have in the unconscious, according to Freud, is so freaky to us that we can't even think about it squarely in dreams. We cannot face it head on. We have to disguise it, even in our dreams at night. So they would distinguish between the manifest content of the dream and the latent content of the dream. Freud did not devise this. He actually borrowed this from probably thousands of years of human culture, because we've been interpreting dreams for almost that long. Tell me what you dreamt and I'll tell you what it meant. But Freud was the first to try to make it into a science and to come up with dictionaries. The vast majority of dream dictionaries that are out there are Freudian. They're psychoanalytic, psychodynamic. And if you look at some of the interpretations of dreams, you can see if they're not literal, they tend to be very much on the sex and violence kind of end of the spectrum. Now, the manifest content of a dream is what you actually dreamed. It's the actual plot of the dream. I dreamt this, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then that happened. That's the manifest content. But because, according to Freud, we're so freaked out by what's in our unconscious, the manifest content is not what's in our unconscious. We have to interpret it. The latent content is what the dream meant. You interpret the manifest content to get the latent content. So when I dream about this, it actually means that. When I dream about this other thing, it actually means that other thing. So manifest is what you actually dreamt, the latent content is what it actually meant, and a psychodynamic therapist will interpret dreams in order to determine what is really going on inside that person's unconscious. Now, not everybody bought that, but a lot of people did and still do. There are other theories as to what might be going on, why we dream. One that I kind of like is the problem-solving theory. Now, the idea here is that when we're asleep, when we're dreaming, anything can happen. Anything is possible in dreams, and usually does. When we're awake and thinking about a problem, we tend to follow the same patterns. We tend to fall into ruts. Okay? We think about things the same way. We want to do things the same way. We're functionally fixated, as it were. But the idea is that when we're dreaming, we can come up with new and interesting ways to deal with those problems, which may be why often we tend to dream about things that we've been thinking about or things that have been bothering us. Maybe when we dream, we're coming up with ways to do that. Now, I can't say there's been a lot of scientific evidence for this. Then again, there hasn't been a whole lot for Freud's either. Freud was of the I know it's true, don't confuse me with the facts school of pseudoscience, if you want to be completely accurate. But in my own personal anecdotes, I can tell you that, for instance, I don't like to make a big decision without sleeping on it. If I'm trying to decide whether to do something big with my life, I don't just go out and say, yes, that'd be great, and do it. I wait a day or two and see if it still sounds as good. Because sometimes I've thought in the evening, that's fantastic, I need to do that. And then in the morning, I've been thinking, oh my God, I'm so happy I didn't do that. Maybe that's because somewhere in my dreams, I thought about it more. I thought about it differently. I worked out what it might mean or what it could actually go on, and then either decided it was great or decided it wasn't. It's quite possible that this could be going on. Now, the last theory is the most scientific one, which means in some ways it's the least fun. Science can be a lot of fun, but sometimes it can be a little dry. This is the activation synthesis theory. Even sounds scientific. Activation synthesis. The idea here is that for whatever reason, we need REM sleep. That REM sleep is necessary. I talked about one possible reason REM sleep might be necessary in my Why Do We Sleep lecture. Maybe it allows us to get an idea of our environment in between bouts of very, very deep sleep. Maybe REM sleep, when our brain essentially is revved up so that it looks awake, maybe it's needed because if we put our brains into delta wave sleep for 4 hours straight, it might not wake up very well the next morning. Maybe it's the equivalent of going out and starting the car on a really cold night to make sure it'll start in the morning. We don't know. But let's say that we need REM sleep. And when we're having REM sleep, when REM sleep is going on, basically your brain is behaving as if you're actually perceiving things. Your occipital cortex is behaving like you're seeing things. Your temporal cortex is behaving like you're hearing things. You can even get taste, touch, and smell in there, although not quite as often as hearing and vision. And when our brain is active like that, we tend to interpret, if our occipital lobe is active in the visual centers, we interpret it as we're seeing something. Now, maybe when we're asleep and that activity begins, we're interpreting it as we're seeing something even though we're not. Our brain it's a hallucination, essentially. That we see things that aren't there, we hear things that aren't there. But it's just a byproduct of the fact that our brain needs to be active. It's kind of like if you drive a car. You start the engine so that the engine can turn the wheels so that you can go from here to there. It's highly simplistic, but work with me. Right? That's why we start engines, so we can go from here to there. But a byproduct of that particular starting an engine is sound. When you run an engine, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear the combustion and the pistons and everything else working. That sound is a byproduct. Right? But we use that sound. That sound does have its uses. For instance, a lot of us use our hearing to tell whether or not a car is coming. If I'm walking along the side of the road, I use my hearing to know whether or not a car is coming up behind me. And this has actually become a problem with some of the newer battery-powered cars because they don't make any sounds and people have been walking in front of them because they don't hear a car. Another byproduct of a running engine is heat. And in the winter, a lot of us are very happy about that byproduct because it helps keep the car warm and keeps us from getting cold. Now, we don't run an engine to make sound. We don't run an engine to even necessarily get heat. We run the engine to get from here to there. The sound and the heat are a byproduct. Maybe the visions that we see, the dreams that we have, are just a byproduct of that active brain. Yeah, I mean, it's as romantic an idea as the psychodynamic or the problem solving, but it is something that is a lot more scientific. And by the way, There is no reason why more than one of these can't be true. Maybe the activation synthesis is indeed true, but maybe we can also use those dreams, for instance. Even if they're not needed for anything else, we can still use them to work out problems. There's been some suggestions that we dream in order to help implant memories more deeply, figure out what to keep and what we don't keep. We can even maybe work the psychodynamic theory in there. It's interesting, because I've read studies where people who have had a brain injury to the point where they cannot wish for anything. They can't dream of anything. They can't really want anything that they don't have. They can't take that step because of that injury in their brain. Also don't dream. Which can make you wonder whether or not Freud might have had a point after all. But as usual, we don't know which of these is true, if any of them are. Maybe none of them are. But they're the best we have at the moment, particularly the activation synthesis idea.